I figured I'd mix things up a little bit and actually finally give you what many of you have asked for, which is, Eric, what is your journey to becoming a CISO? We talk about life of a CISO. I give you tips and tricks, but I haven't actually told you my story, my journey. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security. Welcome. You know what time it is. It's time. Woo! It's time for Life of a CISO with yours truly. Dr. E is in the house. I figured I'd mix things up a little bit and actually finally give you what many of you have asked for, which is, Eric, what is your journey to becoming a CISO? We talk about life of a CISO. I give you tips and tricks, but I haven't actually told you my story, my journey of how I not only got into cybersecurity, I became a CISO, and where I am today advising companies, helping you and providing coaching to security and chief information security officers. So I figured I'd go in, and this is probably going to take a couple of podcasts of sort of showing you how I got started, where I began, and helping to potentially let you not repeat some of the mistakes I made, give you some motivation, give you some insights, and give you sort of tips and tricks along the way. So we'll start off where I grew up in Long Island, right? If those of you know Long Island, I grew up in Lake Ronkonkoma, very, very average middle-class family. And I was definitely what you would call that geeky kid. But I was that one when you looked at the class photos, everyone else was wearing sort of a nice polo, a button down, and I was the one with the brown shirt, the plaid jacket, the green tie. Yeah, it was like, at times I'm like, I'm not sure if my mom just didn't have fashion sense or she didn't like me, right? But it was definitely one of those. So I grew up sort of that typical geeky kid, bullied a lot in high school. So I know some of you, we've had some conversations and talks about sort of bullying. And the reality is, that has nothing to do with you, right? That's just because you're different, just because you're unique, right? Other people are not willing to accept that. But to me, what I've learned is if you're different and you're unique and people make fun of you or people pick on you, that's actually good. That's actually a positive, because guess what? I don't want to be average. I don't think you want to be average. Now, I know as a kid that's hard because we all want to fit in and we all want to be liked. But the reality is normal is overrated. Average is overrated. We want to be world class. We want to be different. If you look at all of the folks that you would categorize as highly successful, world class individuals, they all were made fun of. They all were picked on because they were different and unique. They saw the world differently. So if you're that type of person that you feel like you're a little different, an outcast, you see the world differently, embrace it and own it. Don't hide it. Don't fight it. One of the phrases I love is, everybody thinks you're crazy until you change the world, and then they think you're brilliant. In the beginning, when Elon Musk said that he was going to go in and create an electric car, they thought he was crazy. When he said he's going to put people on Mars and colonize Mars, once again, the guy is off his rocker. But guess what? Now they say he's brilliant. Right? Now they say he's a world-class innovator. So remember, people will not understand you in the beginning, but once you succeed, they then will admire you and say you're brilliant. So don't let other people's opinions ever dictate or control who you are and what you do. Embrace the uniqueness, own it, step into it, and use it as a superpower, not as a weakness. That was something I wish I knew younger. Now I own and embrace my weirdness, quirkiness, and guess what? Those that are like me love it, and those that don't, and that's okay, right? You got to realize not everyone is going to understand you. Not everyone is going to like you, but be you. Be the best, most unique version of you, and don't let other people's opinions ever dictate or change who you are. So then I went in and typically very good in math and science, not as good on English and history. And like many of us do, we allow labels to be put on us in school, where basically as I went through elementary school, junior high, and high school, it was, oh, he's the science and math kid. He's not as good in English and history. So what do you think happened? I wasn't as good in English and history. And guess what I learned later in life? Communication is the most critical skill you can ever learn. Being able to embrace and learn the English language, being able to communicate concisely, deliberately, is something that's really important. So as crazy as it sounds, that I'm going to jump around a little bit, but it's all going to fit together. Because in the high school and college, I allowed labels to be put on me, limiting beliefs that were false that I allowed to be truths. I believed I wasn't good in English and history. So guess what? Your mind is a genie. Your wish is my command. So if you tell it you're not good at something, it won't be good at it. Because otherwise, it's proving you're a liar and you can't operate in an incongruent state. So if you believe something to be true, your mind will create that truth. So I struggled in English. I never did really good. And guess what? I didn't really study, didn't work hard. Then I realized in my late 20s that I was not really good at communicating. My grammar wasn't well. I guess that's not good grammar there. And I wasn't able to communicate and was having trouble. So I actually hired an English tutor. And for 4 years, I basically relearned everything I was supposed to. So here's the reality. Whether you're in high school, college, 20, 30, 40, or 50, you are good at everything. Your brain is beautiful and you're good at everything. So don't let those false beliefs become true that you're not good at English or you're not good at this or you're not. You are good at public speaking. You are good at math. You are good at everything. Start changing and taking control of your life. To be a world-class CISO, you need to be world-class in all those skills. So if you have, just do a self-examination. If you have any limiting beliefs right now that you're not good at talking to execs, or you're not good at public speaking, or you're not good at finances, get rid of that. It's false, it's fiction, it's not true, and you need to nullify it. I remember I was just doing a coaching this week where I'm talking to somebody who's a new CISO, and he's like, Eric, I'm just not comfortable talking to executives. I just don't have a good relationship. Whenever I try talking to them, it's awkward, it's weird. I just don't have executive skills. I'm not accepted by the executive team. I'm not one of them. I don't fit in. And I'm like, cool. Let me know when you're ready to change. And they looked at me. I said, listen, you hired me as a coach, but basically you just told me that you have false information that you believe to be factual data and you're not willing to change. If you're telling me you don't fit in with the execs, you're not one of them, they don't include you, they don't let you in, and you have no idea how to talk to them and you feel awkward around them, and you believe that to be true, unless you wake up and say, I'm willing to change, I'm willing to accept that as false, I'm willing to accept that as total and complete BS, I can't help you. But what I can help you is shine a bright light on the bullshit, shine a bright light on what you're doing to destroy yourself and your career, and then give you a choice. Do you want to believe that? If you want to keep believing it, then that's your choice. If you want to change, that's also your choice too. But it's your choice. I can't force you to change. You're the one that has to recognize that you're willing to change your identity and you're willing to change your beliefs. And you can do that at any time you want. And then crazy thing, I then went in and asked them, well, are there people you do get along with? Oh yeah, managers and directors and vice presidents I get along with. It's the C-suite I don't get along with. So then I started asking him, like, well, what do you do? He's like, oh, well, I always go to the offices where the managers and directors and vice presidents are, and I always walk around, I bring people coffee, I chat with them, and I talk with them. And I said, great. And what about the C-suite? Oh, I never go to their office, I never talk to them, I never email them. And I'm like, I said, could you maybe see how you're creating a false reality? I said, what if you went over to the C-suite and did what you did with the vice presidents and managers? What if you just spent some time over there and just had small talk with them? What if you brought them coffee? What if you did the exact same thing you're doing in that other area? And it's funny because it's only been a few days and they did that already. Like, Eric, I had some great conversations with the C. And I'm like, yes, because all of a sudden you realized what you're saying wasn't true and you shifted and changed your belief structure. So always question reality, always question your beliefs and say, is that really true and something I want to live by? So I was the math and science kid, and I was always fascinated with buildings and bridges. I still am today. I mean, go to a city and look at a 50-story building. How did they build and design this? Even like pyramids and other building. I mean, I'm just fascinated by that. So I was going to major in architecture because that's something I'm very interested in. But I also learned something very important. There's a difference between the two P's: passion and purpose. Passion are things you enjoy. And what happens is most of us end up majoring in passions. The problem is passions change over time. Passions is what you do for fun, but it doesn't drive you and burn that internal fire. Purpose is what you were put on this planet to do. Purpose is what makes you unique and different. What is it that you do better and easier than anyone else? It just comes naturally to you. And it turns out that this has evolved over time, but my purpose is really about helping people. I care about people. I love people so much. I do not like when people suffer. That I believe my true purpose for being here is to secure cyberspace, to basically end suffering in cyberspace. I believe that is my true purpose, and every day I step more and more into that. So you always want to keep in mind passion, which are interests and things you enjoy, and purpose is why you are here. What is it that you do better than anyone else, that you're gifted at, that comes naturally to you? So this is something that happens throughout a lifetime, but just always want you, as you go through today, the week, and the next couple of months, just keep thinking about, am I doing what I'm passionate about or my purpose? And what is your true purpose? So fortunately, I had a family friend that at the age of 16 sat down. Now remember, this is in the 80s. So this is in the 80s. There weren't computers. If you had a computer, it was a Commodore 64. And if you were on the internet, it was basically you had an AOL account. right? In the late 80s, early 90s. But computers didn't exist. Laptops really didn't exist. The World Wide Web didn't exist. So completely different time and different place. But a family friend sat down and said, Eric, everything's moving to computers. Computers are going to take over the world. It's how we're going to communicate, how we're going to live, how we're going to operate. And you're on the cutting edge. So if you major in computers, you'll have a skill set that will allow you to do anything. You can work anywhere. You can be an architect because guess what? Everything in architecture will move to computers. So if you understand and know computers, how they work, how to program them, then you're going to have a huge advantage to do whatever you want to do, whether it's architecture or somebody else. So made a lot of sense, did a lot of research, and decided to switch from architecture to computer science. Now pause. People will be put in your life to give you guidance and direction. You don't always have to listen to it, but it's often wise to consider it. So that was something where I did some research, I talked to other folks, and it turned out to be very smart advice. It aligned very well with what I wanted to do. And I majored in computer science with a minor in business. So I went to New York Institute of Technology on Long Island. There was campuses on Long Island and the city, and majored in computer science. Now here's the issue. Back in the late 80s, computer science was a new area. It was just starting to evolve and develop as a major, and it basically branched off of electrical engineering. So I had to go in and take all of the calculus and differential equation classes, all the physics classes, and many of the engineering classes, because they didn't have enough computer science classes at the time. So I remember sitting there on a Thursday afternoon in Fortran programming. And Fortran is more for electrical engineering and circuitry type. And I'm sitting there going, is this what I want to do with the rest of my life? Because this was not interesting to me, right? The engineering side was not of interest. I was more creative, computer science, programming. I'm in this Fortran class and I'm like, what am I doing? Is this really what I want? Did I make one of the biggest mistakes of my life majoring in computer science? And it hit me. I need to go to the co-op office. I need to go to the co-op office today. Now, class ended at 3:30. The co-op office was on the other side of campus. And you can probably, if you're guessing how the universe works, it's going to test you. It's going to test your convictions. I walk outside and it started raining. I didn't have my umbrella, didn't have a rain jacket or anything else. But that conviction was so strong, I must go to the co-op office today. So I walk in the rain. I arrive there at around 4 o'clock. They close at 4:30. And I walk in and I say, computer science major, I'm interested in doing some co-ops because I want to understand what computer scientists really do, whether this is the right major for me or not. And before I can finish talking, the person says, how did you know? I'm like, how did I know what? Like, how did you know? I'm like, I'm not with you here. They're like, I'm assuming you came today in the rain at the end of the day because you knew that the CIA was recruiting tomorrow. I'm like, no idea. Like, really? I'm like, well, I guess the universe knew, but I didn't know because it said I had to go today. But they said, yes, once every 2 years, the CIA comes on campus and recruits candidates. They're coming tomorrow. They won't be back for another 2 years. And we have 2 slots left. Would you like one of them? Absolutely. Now they said, listen, we're not going to be able to prep you because we close in 15 minutes. So this is just going to be experience for you. It's going to be some good experience, but probably not going to work out. But don't worry. You'll help us out by filling the slots, and then we'll find you another co-op afterwards. So great. Pause. Trust your gut. I don't know why I was told I needed to go to the co-op office that day, but I would tell you that was a pivotal part of my career. People always go in and go, Eric, did you have this well-designed plan of computer science, working at the CIA and all this? And I'm like, honestly, I like to think I had this grand plan. I believe the universe, infinite intelligence had the plan. But no, to me, it felt like sort of random events that I just listened and followed. So when you get that gut feeling, like I did, I must go to the co-op office, it's a good idea to listen to it. I wish I could tell you how exactly it works. I don't know, but I tell you, it's almost always right. When you have that just intuition or instinct that you should do something or act or behave in a certain manner, it's usually right. Trust your instinct, trust your gut. It knows what it's doing. So I'm so glad that I went. So I show up the next day to interview. Now, another thing. When you don't know what's at stake and you don't really understand the severity of a situation, you tend to be relaxed, focused, and do much better. We tend to put a lot of extra pressure on ourselves. When we're going into a final exam, it's just another test. But why do we stress ourselves out? Why do we put all this extra anxiety and pressure on ourselves? Because we make it bigger than it needs to be, and we make it harder than it needs to be. Life is pretty simple. We just make it so much more difficult. And what I'm referring to is, I was a young kid, I think I was 19. I didn't really understand the severity of interviewing for the Central Intelligence Agency. Didn't really recognize how valuable this could be to my career or anything else. So I just was super chill. I'm just like, okay, I don't really know what's going on. But so I showed up, I was super relaxed, wasn't nervous, super natural, great conversation, open, direct, nice and easy, because I didn't understand the severity of the situation. And that's a key thing I've learned in life. Downplay the severity. Because guess what? Life is pretty simple. We don't need to put extra pressure on ourselves or make things a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So I went in super chill, not even realizing the severity. We go through the interview, which is 20 minutes, and they give me an envelope. Once again, no idea what that means. Gave me an envelope, so I walk out of the interview with an envelope. And the three people from the co-op have these big eyes. They're like, whoa, what'd you do? And I'm like, I don't know, what did I do? And they're like, you're the first candidate today that got an envelope. And I'm like, and this shows you how naive I was. Is that good? They're like, that means you move to the next level. That means they want you to apply. They tend to only give out a few envelopes. If you're not a good candidate, if they don't think you're a good match, if they don't think you're aligned, they don't give you an envelope. 11 people interviewed today, and you're the first person that moved to the next level that got an envelope. And I'm like, cool. I guess I did better than I thought. Right? So once again, when you take the pressure off yourselves, things tend to always work out for your advantage. So I then go home, and I fill out all the paperwork. You got to go back 3 generations, so it was a great time to bond with my parents and family, just to find out about family history, our heritage, where our family came from, fill out all this paperwork, and send it back. Then you don't hear anything. So I go to the co-op office, and I'm like, so what's the deal with the CIA? And they're like, oh, you don't call them, they'll call you. You might hear from them in 9 months, 12 months, or you might never hear from them again. Like, okay, that doesn't sound like a sure thing, so can we do something else? They're like, sure. We have this opportunity at Grumman Aerospace in computer science for you to also be able to go in and do some programming, some computer science, working on the radar system for the F-14 fighter jet. I'm like, that sounds cool. So applied and got that intern. So next thing, don't hedge your bets on a single horse. I applied to the CIA, but I also said I want other options. Always consider your options. Always give yourself options and never be afraid to ask. This is when I developed my mentality that many of you have heard over the years, if you've listened to my podcast, is if you don't ask, the answer is no. If you do ask, it might be yes. So I just kept going back to the co-op office every single week going, any opportunities? Any opportunities? Any opportunities? Now, truth be told, the Grumman co-op that I ended up getting and working at Grumman for 9 months, great introduction to computer science, was not meant for computer scientists. They only wanted engineers. But because I was so persistent, the co-op office said, we need to give this guy something. So they submitted my name to Grumman, even though Grumman said they didn't want computer scientists. It turned out one of the engineers had a programming project and they actually wanted a computer scientist. So if I wasn't persistent, that opportunity would have never manifested itself. So don't ever be rude or obnoxious, right? Be persistent of what you want. If you want something, keep asking. Keep asking, because as long as you ask, there's always an option you'll get a yes. Once you stop asking, once you give up, the answer is always no. So be persistent. So I worked at Grumman, got a great opportunity. Basically, with co-oping at New York Tech, you work a semester, you go to school for a semester, and then you work a summer semester. So I worked for Grumman for 9 months, and as I'm finishing it up, I get a call from the CIA. And they're like, we want to fly you down so we can do all the additional checks. So basically, I moved to the next level. So they flew me down and went through all the checks, validation, everything else, and I passed, and they're like, we want you to come work for us, and we want you to come next semester. Problem. I just took a semester off for Grumman, and I can't take 2 semesters off because you have to do at least a semester a year to stay enrolled as a full-time student. They came back and said, well, no, the only opportunity we have is for next semester. So I went back and said, listen, I didn't hear from you for a year. I didn't know if this opportunity was going to happen. So I took another opportunity. I have to go back to school. I would really like to intern with you. I know you invested a lot of time, energy, and effort, but I cannot start until the following semester. And they said, well, we normally don't do this, but let me run it by my boss. And they came back and said, oh, that'll work fine. We actually have more openings for the following semester. You can absolutely do that. Once again, ask for what you want. Many people, if they came back and said, you have to do it this semester or you lose, would just have been frustrated, would have given up, or would have done something to get themselves into trouble. But I was open and honest. I said, listen, here's the deal. Here's where we're at. Love to do it, but can't do it till next semester. So next important lesson, always be honest, always be upfront, and always ask for what you want. So then they go in and say, okay, we're going to fly you down to see which office you need to work in. Now, what they didn't tell me was this was reversed interview. What I meant by that is, as a co-op, I had full clearances, full access just like an employee, but I was a free resource. I didn't go against their budget. So every office wanted co-ops. It was basically free labor that they didn't have to pay for. So when I was going in, I thought I was trying to sell them on my skills. And in reality, they were trying to sell me on why I should work for their office because I got to pick. So I interviewed with networking, with a programming group, with an operational group, and with a small little office of security. So I go back and I start asking my advisors, different professors, what their advice is. And everyone's like, oh, networking's the future. Networking's the future. Go into the networking, go into the network operations center, networking. I said, but this cybersecurity stuff sounds really cool. Eric, true statement from my advisor. Cybersecurity is a fad. It's going to go away. It'll be automated with technology. You don't want to do that. It's a dead-end career. Now remember, when I was in high school, I was given advice, go in computer science. So I do listen to advice. In this case, I listened to the advice, but I was also like, I need to follow what I really enjoy. And don't get me wrong, networking's okay, but it didn't seem that interesting. The cyber stuff just seemed like it was calling me. It seemed like what I was born to do. It was creative, it was unique, it was different. You were finding vulnerabilities, exploits. It just seemed so interesting and exciting. So after considering all the advice, all the options, I looked at it and said, it's not going to hurt me to get experience, right? It's co-oping. I'm still in school. I can still switch, right, to networking the following semester. I had multiple semesters here, but it was important that I did what I wanted, what I really enjoyed. So this was one where I trusted myself over others. And once again, turned out to be one of the best bets I ever made. So I go in and I work for the Office of Security and basically get to become a professional hacker looking for exploits, looking for vulnerabilities, and looking for ways to be able to break into a system with ultimately the ability to secure and lock down the system. So that's sort of our, like I said, it's going to be multiple parts. So this is the part one, couple lessons or takeaways. It's always good to get advice. It's sometimes good to listen to advice, but you always want to trust your gut. Next, ask for what you want. Be honest, be upfront, ask for what you want. It's okay to say you can't do something. And finally, be persistent for what you want. If there's something you want to do, be persistent, because the only way to get to a yes is by getting no's. So I hope you enjoyed this episode, got a little background, little understanding, some tips and tricks, and then we'll continue part 2 in the next episode.